Hey guys, what's going on? Quentin here. So I'm back with another video. This one's going to be on wiring. So give me one second. What is this? What is moving back there? Alright guys, sorry about that. Crazy wiring. That's why we had to get that monster out of there. So this video is going to be on rewiring truck, starting with the body harness. What I did was I got that junk out of there. It's definitely a fire hazard. Wires were old. Some of them had already started to melt. So I went ahead and got that all ripped out. What I want to really focus on is using a painless harness, and I used ChatGPT. Those are going to be the two biggest things that I found for myself to make this a pretty straightforward process. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you first what I did with the harness, and I'm going to explain how I used ChatGPT to get to this point. I definitely want to make a quick note to take your time pulling the harness out of the truck. One thing I did is I saved the harness that is for the headlight harness underneath the hood, so I didn't have to remake or get all the different sockets for that. The rear harness on the truck was really bad, so I ended up purchasing a separate harness for that I'm going to be wiring in to the painless harness. And then there were a bunch of like wires and stuff underneath the dash that connected to the steering column itself that I was able to save and reuse without having to repin or rewire anything to the painless harness. So just taking your time, saving those different types of connectors are going to save you so much time and so much headache, because the painless does a pretty good job of making provisions for those wires, and then having to not repin them and I can just splice them in with some good connectors makes it so much simpler moving forward. So now I'm going to turn the camera around so you guys can see what I have. I know it looks really crazy right now, but it all makes so much sense to me. So this is going to be the old taillight harness that I have. As you can see right here, things were getting all melted. Things were all cut up. The wires were all old and brittle. And these sockets and stuff, they were just really bad. And this is not what type of wiring stuff I want on the truck, because I don't want it to burn down. So I'm gonna throw that away. And this is the brand new taillight harness that I purchased from our good old spot on Amazon. Somebody builds these and sells them, and this is really nice stuff. It has two provisions for, this one goes to the chassis, so this is the part that I'm going to be hooking up to the painless harness, and that's going to run all the lights on the rear of the truck. And then they also give me provisions for trailer connections. So I'm going to be running a 7-blade trailer plug in the back, so I can have trailer brakes as well. And so this side of the harness in the rear is going to be hooked up to that stuff. So that's going to be the rear harness. This is the harness from underneath the hood. This is the headlight harness that I saved. So this is all the wiring here for underneath the hood for the headlights. And then these are the wires that I have to connect to the painless as well. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to connect on both the headlight harness and the taillight harness. I'm going to be using these style connectors. So it's just a plug that I can connect. So it's going to be nice and clean. I'm going to have to pin these out, but that should be pretty straightforward. But I'm going to be using these. So it's a nice clean connection. So if I ever needed to put a brand new harness in for the tail light or the headlight, I'm not having to cut wires. All I have to do is unplug it and then repin the plug for the new harness that needs to be installed. And it also helps with troubleshooting. So I'm gonna keep things nice and clean. Some other things that I got for this wiring setup is going to be, and this is something that you're gonna have to make the decision for yourself. I have this nice waterproof box that's gonna have 6 relays in it, and they have some smaller, they have some bigger, but I was estimating based off of the different things that I need in the vehicle having a nice clean box for my relays would be important. So 6 relays, and then I have some fuses as well inside of this panel. So this is going to be a really nice watertight box that I can mount somewhere underneath the hood. I kind of have a spot already. It's going to be on the passenger side fender, so I'm going to be mounting that. You're going to want a couple of bus bars. So I know for sure I'm going to be using the ground one. So I'm going to have a nice clean ground spot on the inside underneath the hood. And then if I do need a power bus bar, I'll have this one as well. Lastly, in terms of the additional things that you need when wiring a vehicle, it's going to be this MIDI. So this right here is going to allow me to run these larger style fuses as opposed to the smaller blade fuses. And I'm going to be running things like this to this. There are going to be portions of the harness, main power, or alternator power that are going to be running to this fuse spot right here. And it just allows me to have clean connections and safe connections, because the last thing you want is shortages, running back and melting wires and burning things down, because that's how your truck ends up catching on fire. So I have some heat shrink. I have some wire loom, a couple different sizes here. I have a nice set of clippers to cut the wires down. I have a nice set of crimps. They do have some that help make it a little bit easier, but those are good enough for me. I have a big industrial, I guess what is this called? Well, whatever it is. This is just to crimp down big, heavier wires. You pull this up here, it moves up, and then you just slam it down with a hammer, and it mashes it all down. So those are the things outside of the wiring harness that just help installation to be clean, and it's going to help everything to be connected properly. So now let me turn the camera to this wiring harness so we can go through the harness and everything that I did to it. Painless harness. I am not sponsored by these guys, but it would be dope to be. So let's keep it pushing. So this portion here is going to be the inside fuse block that goes inside of the truck. And then this covers all the wiring on the inside. And then this right here is going to be the wiring that goes to the bulkhead on the outside of the truck under the engine bay that does all the wiring on the outside of the truck. And so the painless harness comes with some instructions, and let me actually grab those really quick. This is the instruction manual here. What I did with ChatGPT is I get the manual number, I gave it the truck, and then I told it some specifics about what I will be and will not be needing from the harness itself, because this harness is going to be specifically set up for small block Chevy, and so it's going to have a bunch of provisions for things related to the small block Chevy. And a lot of those I did not need anymore because I knew I was going to be running a standalone harness, it being an LS swap truck. And so I was able to take my time and go through this harness itself with a little bit of help of the book. But with ChatGPT, I was able to just spit and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at, and these are the wire colors that I have. This is the section of the harness that I'm working in. And me and Chat literally broke down the harness bit by bit, and I was able to eliminate the things I did not need, and then I was able to label and tie off the things that I knew I was going to be able to keep. So definitely start off by reading this book, but then I will say if you're going to be doing something like I am and doing a lot of eliminating, you can definitely sit down and chat, and it's going to take this manual and then it can carve out all the things you know you do not need to move forward with the install that you're going to be using. So for some reason it didn't record me installing this, but what I did was I had to put some what's called dielectric grease. I put some of that on the inside of the plug before I attached it, and then there's one bolt right here. You can see all these wires that I knew I wouldn't need. I already have those spliced off and covered up. So now this is all set. So I figured this would be the easiest way to talk about the wiring harness and what I knew I would need from what I wouldn't need. Without just having it set down on the table, you can see it burn the truck. So right here, I know this is a simple set. This is from the window motors. And so I left these in here because I wasn't sure if the painless harness had those already in there or not. So I left them in, but they do. So I can pull that one out now. And I can pull this one out now and get that removed as well. But one awesome thing that I found is it does. All I have to do now is just plug those guys in where they belong. So this one's gonna go to the bottom of the window wiper motor, and this one's gonna go to the top of the window wiper motor, right up here. Let's see that? And they do a pretty good job of keeping all the wires, keeping all the connectors functioning with the stock harness. That's why it matters which harness you buy. So now that's able to just plug right in there, straight from the harness. So this is going to be the headlight harness. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna grab the original harness so I can get it kind of fixed up onto the core support right here. As you guys see, I've been making some pretty good progress, but I'll get it placed onto the core support here. I'll just plug it into the back, and then that'll let me know how much of this I need to actually cut off, and then I'll be able to leave the rest to just splice into the harness for the headlights. So give me 1 second, I'm gonna grab that and get it kind of wrapped. All right, so I have the wires ran that need to be ran for now. The wires that I still have are looped up, still have to be covered in the loom before I send them to where they need to go. What I wanted to do before I got into all of that is just show you guys how simple taking your time, labeling the wires, eliminating the ones you know you don't need are gonna make this process. So after I got this bulkhead bolted in, I wanna say it's been maybe 5 minutes just to get everything placed. And so this is the taillight harness section that I already have looped together that I'm gonna now loom together and send underneath the vehicle towards the back. This right here is going to be the sending unit power. So that's gonna go back to the sending unit in the back there. That's gonna be for the power for the gauge. This one right here is not gonna be used right now. That's if I wanted to upgrade the headlights. And this one's for the horn. So whenever I get new horns, I'm gonna be able to use this harness right here. This one right here, I have it tied off with the headlight harness that I already have ran across the front. So I just have it plugged in over here. There's a bunch of loose grounds and those bulbs that need to go into the lights. And then right here, I have it plugged in right here. On this side, I have it plugged in here. You can see how it's loose grounds that need to go in, and the light bulbs that need to be plugged in. But now that I have this over here, I can cut this down, get this all attached, and then the headlight will be integrated into the harness. I have the main power wire. This is a 12-volt power. And then this one's going to be ran to that MIDI fuse box. And then from the MIDI fuse box, it's going to be going to the battery. So there's going to be fused power from the battery to the bulkhead, which is going to be the main power source to the fuse panel. So that's going to be fused. And then I have this purple wire here. That is the crank signal to the starter, and that's for the small lug that's down there on the starter. So taking your time and labeling everything out is going to make everything super simple when it gets down to wiring it up. So now I'm going to just take my time, get the wires loomed up on the outside, and then I'll be prepared to splice in the type of connectors that I need to connect into either the starter or the MIDI connector or the harness for the other side to attach those two harnesses, or even the alternator. So I'm not going to bore you guys with that stuff, but now you see how simple it is when you take your time, you label your wires before you even get them to the truck, and then once they're all inside, you're able to just determine which route you want to send them and go ahead and get them all wired in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go inside the truck. I'm going to show you a few of the connectors that I use from the stock harness and just splice those into the painless harness for the truck. That made it super simple, and that's going to make it super easy to get those things back connected into the truck. All right, guys, so the first one is going to be this harness right here. As you can see, I already spliced those in, and this one is going to connect to the plug onto the steering wheel. It was a lot simpler to just keep all of those pre-pinned wires into this connector and just splice them right here. And I know this connector works with my steering column. I saw a few videos where guys and girls had to do some modifications to the plug that came with the painless wiring harness. So I just decided to save my plug and wire it in. These two wires definitely tripped me up because there were no provisions for it on the painless system. So what I was able to do was talk to ChatGPT and let it know the type of dash cluster, which I'm not running the stock dash cluster in this truck, that I was going to be using, the type of signals that I was going to be using, which are going to be aftermarket signals, and the other few different things that I will be and will not be using. And it told me that even though you can tell I'm still a little nervous, that's why I left them there. I just tied them off and didn't connect them to anything. But it told me that I did not need these. So that's why I have those all taken out. And there was also no provisions for them on the painless harness. So it kind of makes sense that they're not going to be used anymore. This is going to be another plug that I saved. You see this one right here. This one goes right here into this box underneath the steering column. So this one was able to connect perfectly into the harness. There was nothing missing. I just took my time, got those spliced in, got those covered up. So it was a great connection. And so that's going to work perfectly. This is the headlight switch right here. I pulled out the whole switch, and this plug actually works perfect this plug is from the new harness. I didn't use the old one, but I did save this ground wire that I'm going to just be able to wire in to a part of the chassis underneath the dash. I believe there was one more. Let me see. Was there any more that I used? I guess there wasn't, but this is for the amp turn on. I know I left the dome light switch right here. I'm going to be putting that on an actual switch, not using the door jams. Different 12 volt auxiliaries here, radio 12 volt. And there's just a few different wires that I'm going to be wiring in. Stop recording.
But GM used this similar switch for like 30 years, so it fits a bunch of different things. And it's simple and yet a pain in the ass to do. So that's why we're going to make the video. This one's just from
Yep. That's what it is. This one goes in first. So when you're putting these back in, you have these two plugs that go way up here, and they're a pain, but this one goes first, and you can see this little tab here is where that sits on it. And what I did was I plugged this one in first, and then I tried to put this one in, and that wasn't happening. So now that I know, this one should go in pretty straightforward now. See? I feel like it's in. It's not going anymore. So put this other one back in now. And so now they're both installed. All right, so it took a little bit of doing. It's not the most comfortable to get this stuff wired in, being such a big guy, but I got it in there. So I just have a bunch of these wires that I've already labeled that I'm gonna be going through now. Something like this, I gotta put an end on and just get it mounted to the chassis, or even this right here, that should work. There's a old chassis ground that I can use, so I can just connect that to that, and that'll be a good chassis ground there, and just get everything else wired in. So that's going to be a bulk of it for the inside that I'm going to be doing right now, and it's just getting all the wiring completed on the outside. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. I definitely have a lot of routing, looming, and then connecting to do with the rest of the harness that I have. But I will say a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the stress was taken out by doing the work before I got it installed. So taking my time, going through the book, using ChatGPT to see everything that I need versus what I don't need. And now I can just take my time, get everything cut down to length that I need it to be, and then just adding the different connectors, plugs, whatever I need to get it wired in and connected to the truck. So thank you guys for watching. If it's something that you like, please like, comment, and subscribe. Stick with me, and we'll see how we do.